Okay, so I am putting together the acrylic geared cuptisserie, cup turner. So I purchased these from, let me see what it says it's from, Clever Cuts and Carving. They are on online. And I purchased, it comes with just this one gear and that your turner goes through, the actual motor goes, and the rod goes through this one. And then this one, you have your PVC pipe that'll go through that. So this is like one little set that comes, that he sells. And then you can buy the additional gear or gears for however many turners you want to have. So for each one of these gears where your PVC pipe will go through, you can get, you'll get one side for each, like one turner or one cup can go on each side for the PVC pipe. I cut down the PVC pipe 7 inches. This is a 3/4 inch pipe, and as you can see, it fits perfectly through the gear. And then, so that's what I purchased from them, and then I went to Lowe's, Home Depot, and I picked up the 3/4 inch pipe, cut those pieces down. I also got 1x2s. I got 2 pieces, or I actually had the whole piece cut down, but you only need the 2 pieces of the 1x2. And then I have the male and female ends for the PVC pipe. Put that together once you put all this together. So I didn't know that the seller of these gears actually does sell the front and back parts of the PVC. I guess you would call it like the front wall and the back wall if you want to do the actual acrylic style turner, so that you can actually see the gears moving around. Oh, that's my daughter completely turning off my light.
Sorry.
There we go, thanks. So I ended up, because I didn't realize that he actually sold these pieces, I ended up having to buy, or just buying, well, the plan was to buy 2 pieces of acrylic at Home Depot at Lowe's. So I made a mistake yesterday of going to Lowe's and purchasing 2 pieces of PVC, of acrylic sheets, and didn't realize that they were too thin. So when I tried to drill the holes through them, they completely cracked and shattered, and it was a disastrous mess. So I went back today, and Home Depot is actually the one that sells it a little bit thicker. So I ended up buying the 12x24 in width and diameter, width and length, and then the diameter of the actual sheet is 0.093. They didn't have anything smaller that would actually fit to cover the gears, and then nobody knew where the acrylic cutter was. It was a disaster. So I ended up deciding, let me just get these 2 pieces, and it'll be a little bit bigger than I had originally wanted it to, but better big than too small, because I do want the gears to be covered, because as you know, whenever you use a heat gun, once you apply the epoxy and you use the heat gun, sometimes the epoxy splatters. So I want to make sure that the gears are actually protected and kept out of the way from the epoxy ruining them, because otherwise your turner won't work. So I ended up drilling holes through the acrylic with a diamond, I think it's like a diamond coated, I'm trying to see if I can find it. It's one of these jammies that you attach to your drill, and it will cut right into the acrylic without shattering it all over the place, and it gives it a nice clean circle. Again, if I could go back, I probably would have just purchased the acrylics pre-drilled already, pre-drilled acrylic sheets from the seller, Clever Cuts and Carvings. But then last night when I went online and I was looking at it, I was like, by the time I get it, I could just try to do this on my own and it'll probably cost me less. If money is no object, just get the sheets already pre-drilled, because then all you have to do is buy the screws and the spacers and kind of just, and your PVC pipe, and just put it all together. But this is a good learning experience. So now what I have to do is basically just put my my 1x2s in the place where I want them, where I'm going to put them, and let that, I'm just going to kind of like put them on with wood glue just to kind of hold them in place before I actually drill them in and stuff. I'm going to do a mock-up of making sure everything is aligned where it should be aligned, and then I will come back and show you exactly where how I put it together. I just want to make sure this is all lined up properly before I sit here and pretend as though I know what I'm doing. Okay, so I'm back. So like I was saying before, I had pre-drilled the holes to hold in my motor and the screws that I needed to replace for the motor to screw into this piece of plexiglass. I used these number 8, 32 by ½ inch. So we replaced these because the original screws that it comes with are too short to go through the plexiglass as well as get into the motor. These fit perfectly, and you're gonna need 3 of those just to go from the plexiglass into the actual motor, if you can see that. There's 1, 2, 3. So I did have to pre-drill these holes as well as the ones on, I only did 5, 3 across the top and 2 on these, on the bottom. I was going to put the, put wood glue onto the 1x2s and put it onto my base, but then I decided, let me make sure this all fits first. And then, because it seems as though when you plan something, it doesn't always go according to plan. So I kind of went along with a picture and some instructions that another crafter had posted a few weeks back, and which she was the reason why I ended up ordering these anyway. So what I did was I used some of this this rapid fuse. It's like 30 seconds and it's bonded, so you got to kind of work really quick. So I put my, I think this is a 2 1/4 inch pipe that I PVC pipe that I cut down. So I measured it for the halfway point, slipped the drawing a blank on what this is called, the gear. I slipped the gear on at the halfway point. I did kind of mark it off, and then I slipped it on and I let it sit and dry off to the side, and I did the same thing with the second gear, and just kind of sit it off to the side, let it dry, and then as that was sitting and drying, I went and, here it is, I cut my piece of rod, my metal rod. So this pipe, I had cut one piece. I cut 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 pieces I cut at 7 inches in length. Again, this is a 3/4 inch PVC pipe. So 4 of these I cut at 7 inches. These are gonna be my arms for each side of the cuptisserie. And then I cut 1 piece at 5 inches long, and I cut the rod to be just a little bit longer. So I think I did, I want to say 7.5 inches, because I definitely need enough space for it to go into the gear, and then as well as, and as you can see, here we go. So I need to go into the gear and from the gear into the motor, but the plexiglass is going to be in between, the other sheet of plexiglass is going to be in between this rod and the gear. I'll show you that in a second. But what I did was I did put the end caps, I drilled them, and then I kind of drilled them just a little bit smaller than the actual rod, just so that I can kind of like beat it on there so it's stuck really, really well. And this helps the rod stay level and straight. Again, because I drilled an actual hole here, it's not really square, so it's a little bit bigger than the hole for the rod in the motor. It's not exactly as small as this one is that was pre-drilled in the in this piece. So I just wanted to make sure that it all lines up and it all fit perfectly, and it does. So now what I'm going to do while that's drying, I'm gonna go over the other little supplies that I ended up having to get just to make sure I got everything right. Because again, every time you plan something, it doesn't always go according to plan. So I did get some spacers. I ended up getting 6. I personally am only gonna need 5, but I ended up getting 6. Those spacers are gonna go in between the plexiglass, the 2 sheets of plexiglass. You're gonna put the spacer in between, and then you're gonna use your nut and bolt to secure all sides to kind of sandwich them all together. I purchased several sizes of nuts and bolts because I didn't know whether what I was gonna need or what size I was gonna need. And for me personally, they don't need to be completely flush. And you know, again, for me, if it's a little bit bigger, that works, because it's better than being too small and too tight and not having enough room to actually get all sides sandwiched together perfectly. Then I also bought some washers to go with that and the bolts. So I have here, these are the ones that I used for the rotisserie motor to screw it into that back plate that you'll be doing as well. I'm looking at these because I'm not sure what I bought those for. But again, I did buy multiple sizes of everything. I did buy some 5/8, if I'm not mistaken. I might actually be able to use those. I might actually be able to use those instead. They're kind of small. But actually these might work as well. Let me break these open and see if these will do the job. And again, try to just get everything that you need so that you're not breaking open packages that you're not gonna be able to return. But for some reason, I have been building a lot of these little cup turners and other knick-knackety kind of things around the house, so I'm sure I will come to a point where I'm gonna need this stuff again. Yeah, so that fits, but I don't think that that's gonna fit with these spacers. And the spacers that you get, you have to get them just a little bit larger than these are the quarter inch, instead of I think they make them in an 1/8. I think they make these gears in 1/8 thick and 1/4 inch thick. I ended up getting the 1/4 inch thick. I think if you're gonna get if you're gonna get this so that you can have more than a 1 cup turner, it's better to get the thick, the 1/4 inch. So I'm just gonna check and make sure that this is gonna fit through here. And yes, it will. Okay, so I think my gears and my PVC pipes should be dry now. And just double check that I'm correct in that. I am going to just hit this with the blow dryer really quick to make sure this is dry, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I'm back. Now I put my gears in place where they belong. I am going to put my spacers and my nuts and bolts in place so that I can screw in the top or the other piece of acrylic sheet. Now when I did, that's why this isn't fitting the right way, it's upside down. Okay, so when I actually drilled the holes through it, I did drill with both pieces in place. With both pieces of acrylic were together so that I could see and make sure that they were being drilled in the right spot. This is gonna be a bit boring watching me do this, but I'm just gonna screw these all in and then I'll come back. Okay, that wasn't too much trouble. Just screwing on each corner with your spacer, your nut, your bolt, and your washer. I do have a little excess on each bolt because I ended up buying bolts that were a little bit too long. Again, this is gonna be the backside anyway, so honestly, I always set it and forget it anyway. Throw the cups on, throw the epoxy on, use my heat gun, and I let them roll overnight and I go to bed. That's usually my go-to plan and how I get my cups going. So this is the first time that I've constructed one of these. My other one was on a crate, and I had two motors on just like a wooden crate, and that kind of, you know, served its purpose. And when I saw this, I was like, okay, this seems like something that can that is aesthetically pleasing, and obviously, you know, watching the gears turn, it is pretty and pretty neat to actually have taken on this task of, you know, putting this together. But that being said, boy, was that a pain in the butt. But now that it's all together, I do have to say that one thing you should really pay attention to is making sure that the gears are exactly where they need to be as you're screwing them in. So I did a little bit, you know, screwed this in a little bit, and I just kind of kept going back and forth to make sure that my gears were all in place, because if not, they can kind of like slide out because there is a little bit of a gap between your gears and the acrylic top and back. So you want to make sure that they're not going to like slide out of place or overlap, and you want to make sure that the gears like right here in the center are interlocking with that main gear that's going to be for your motor. You want to make sure that that doesn't, you know, get misaligned. As you can see, like there's a little bit of space right here. You see how I can move that? That's why I was making sure, like I was literally screwing them in a little bit at a time on each corner, and then in the center over here, just to make sure that everything was staying aligned. Other than that, the next part would be to just build out my base. I'm just using a piece of scrap wood that I had laying around. It's actually a shelf to some piece of furniture that I got rid of. And I'm gonna take these 1x2s and I'm going to set them in place with a little wood glue, let it dry a little bit, and then kind of just like drill them in there. And that's gonna be your base to hold. Let me see if I can get this up a little bit so you can see. And then if anybody is curious, like this is just a rotisserie motor that I ended up buying off of Amazon. It doesn't come with the whole like kit. It's just the motor that I ended up purchasing, and this was a while back. I just wanted a backup motor because I did have one of the rotisserie motors from Charbroil completely burn out on me as I just like laid my first layer of epoxy on a cup, and it burned out, and I had a backup that I was planning on building a different turner with. I ended up having to swap the motor out really quick to avoid any catastrophes with the cup. And I ended up ordering this one to be my backup. But then again, like I said before, I had the crate. I decided to just pop 2 on so I could have 2 turning at the same time. But now that, you know, business is picking up and more orders are coming in, I definitely need something that is going to turn more than 2 cups a night. I don't know if you guys can see this, but my fingerprints are everywhere on this because I literally had my fingers in there just making sure everything was aligned, and it's looking kind of cloudy everywhere. I'll stick a little Swiffer type of thing in there later and try to clean it up. I don't know. But I do like how it does look. It is pretty neat with the way that it looks. Here, I'll just grab my tripod so you guys can see what it looks like in the front. So that is the front end of it. And like I said, I drilled out some holes in these end caps for the PVC pipe. And you can see there's a little bit of the pipe sticking out of this end also. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue the metal rod to the PVC pipe so that it, you know, really just stays in place. Because I'm not really sure what exactly I was supposed to do as far as, let me put this back, as far as that's concerned. Like, how am I supposed to make sure that this stays in? But it doesn't seem to be really moving anywhere. It's not even like the least bit like wiggly. And I guess because the motor is really in place on the back of this acrylic piece. And again, like I said earlier, I had screwed out, I had drilled out the 3 holes where the screws go, and I screwed it onto, I've actually mounted the motor onto this. I'm hoping this motor just keeps on living and doesn't give me any issues. But so now my next step is going to be to just place my 1x2s on either side of the acrylic just to kind of hold it in place, and that will be it's, you know, that'll give it some support to not like topple over, and hold on to, you know, the cups. I mean, once you put the cups on there, we know that those are heavy. So I think I might actually see if I have something to like really brace this with. Maybe I can get some, like a metal brace or something. But let me screw these in and see how well they hold up, and that'll give me a better understanding of whether or not I'm going to need something else to really help support this. I think that this will be fine. But better safe than sorry, so I'll be back. Okay, so I actually discovered there's one thing that I am missing from building out the acrylic, and I was just talking to another crafter, Shannon, and she had pointed out that I believe she actually ended up getting the whole kit with the front and back plates from Clever Cuts and Carvings, along with her gears. So her plates actually came with pre-drilled holes at the bottom, so you can actually go through those holes and the wood to really stabilize this. So what I'm gonna do tomorrow, because I am tired, I've been working on this all day, I'm going to drill those holes in tomorrow, and then get my bolts and get my nuts and bolts and go through the wood and the acrylic. But I did test it, and it does spin. Everything is in exactly where it needs to be. The gears are all connected exactly where they need to be. There's just enough room for the gears. Again, as you can see, my fingerprints are everywhere, but there's just enough space for the gears to spin so that they don't get knocked out of place or shifted forward or back. And again, because I didn't actually purchase the front and the back plates for from the maker of the gears, I ended up having to tailor all of this differently than you would if you were to actually purchase them directly from him. But all in all, I have to say this was a good learning experience, because I learned yesterday that I should not have used that cheap, really super thin plexiglass, and that this plexiglass is actually thick enough and is the right size to accommodate cutting through it without actually shattering the whole thing. The other thing is, just make sure if you don't purchase the front and back plates, and you do it the way that you take the route that I went, that you actually make sure that this is the, I think it's 0.093 in width or in depth of the acrylic sheet, because you're going to need to actually also drill in small holes for the motor and for the rod, where the rod goes in, and you have to make sure that that's all really well aligned. I basically just took a Sharpie marker and lined everything up against the plate. I laid it down on the table, and I lined it all up where I needed it, and I just kind of used a Sharpie marker to mark exactly where I needed to go. I then cross-checked with my seamstress measuring tape. I cross-checked all of the measurements to make sure that I was actually, I had everything aligned and even. I think even the slightest bit of misalignment could cause issues later on once you're actually assembling it. So measure twice, cut once. Other than that, and the fact that I have my fingerprints and a little glue here and there where it doesn't really need to be, I'm really satisfied with the way that it looks. Again, tomorrow, I mean, it's in there, but I feel like once I put the rods on, the actual arms on, it might, I don't know, I'm always paranoid that things are gonna slip off and fall off. You hear all these scary stories of people's cups falling off their turners, and I really don't want to experience that. But so I am gonna go back tomorrow and drill, some holes through the wood and the acrylic and make sure that's all aligned. Again, measure twice, cut once. And that'll give it a little bit more stability and will make me feel better that it will actually be on and in place, and nothing's gonna fall over, and it's gonna be wonderful to use. One other quick thing before I go, I did want to point out that because I didn't show these pieces, I don't think. I had the adapters, the male and female adapters for the arms. These are the 7-inch arms. So again, these are going to, wrong way. So one end is going to have this adapter, which has the threads right here. And I'm going to actually glue these on as well to make sure that they're adhered on. The other side is going to be this adapter that has the, it already has the grooves cut out for it to screw on. And then the other side will go in here. And again, I'm going to glue these onto here so that all you have to do is, screw this out, and you can remove your arms. You can cut a bunch of extra and get a bunch of extra adapters so that you can just throw them on there and switch out your cups as you need to without having to slide it off. and all that stuff. And then I think the last thing after all of this, I keep saying the last thing, I think the last part is going to be really just getting the footballs on and stuff, and making sure that those are, I get mine from the Dollar Tree. I try to go in and just check and see when they have some, because my Dollar Tree doesn't typically have them as often as maybe some others. So whenever I see them, I grab 2 or 3 and drill the holes, stick these in with some Gorilla Glue, and I leave them to, I kind of like set them and forget them. And that will be it. Once I have that all done, and then I'm ready to go, which will be tomorrow, because I'm not going to spend 2 more days on this. I do have orders to finish, to complete, and I am hoping to get this going by tomorrow evening so that I can start those or finish those orders, get those spinning. Again, hopefully this helps anyone that decides that they want to go this route and have this pretty little turner. I think the only thing that I would love to have is a complete acrylic encasement to cover the cups while they're spinning, because summer is coming and I'm afraid of any little bug flying around that could possibly simmer down and land onto one of the cups while it's spinning. So that will be the next task, is figuring out how to solve that issue, or prevent that issue from happening. I haven't had it happen yet, but again, you hear those horror stories of stink bugs and mosquitoes and flies that are getting stuck on people's cups. So I guess the next thing is, how do we cover our cups and protect them from the summer buggies? Hopefully this helps everyone. Thanks again.